It's Thursday, the 10th of December 2020. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. Today's headlines. Battle lines are drawn as the federal government introduces major changes to industrial relations in Australia. That's our main story. Plus, consumer confidence hits a 10-year high. Iron ore prices keep rising, making Fortescue Metals the country's sixth largest company. And a local gold and nickel miner changes tack and turns to lithium. The federal government yesterday unveiled its long-awaited industrial relations legislation, which it hopes will reform workplaces in Australia and create jobs. The legislation would give employers power to bypass some safeguards over pay and conditions. The Fair Work Commission would have greater ability to approve agreements involving businesses impacted by COVID-19 that do not comply with the Fair Work Act's Better Off Overall test. The so-called BOOT is the safety net that underpins the enterprise bargaining system. The Omnibus Bill touches many parts of the industrial relations landscape. Employers in 12 award areas hit hardest by the pandemic will be granted exemptions under the Fair Work Act for 2 years, which means they can alter the terms of employment of their workers. Permanent part-time workers in some award categories will be able to do extra work during regular hours without having to be paid penalty rates. Some employers will be able to pay loaded rates, that's a higher standard hourly rate, rather than penalty rates and other allowances. And the legislation includes jail time and fines of up to $1.1 million for employers who deliberately underpay workers. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the bill introduced job-creating and job-keeping changes, while the opposition said it would cut the take-home pay of Australians, particularly essential workers. Reform of labour relations is needed if Australia wants to improve productivity, which was already weak ahead of COVID-19. But reform, inevitably, means some people won't end up better off. The release of the Omnibus Bill is just the first kilometre in a marathon race. Both sides of politics have drawn the battle lines, and this debate will run for much of 2021 up to the next federal election. In overseas news, Canada became the second country to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for use, and the British National Health Service said people with a significant history of allergies should not receive the vaccine after 2 people experienced reactions from the shots. China is promising to accelerate the rollout of its vaccines across Indonesia, Morocco, Brazil, and Turkey. And whenever Anthony Fauci talks, the world seems to listen. Dr. Fauci is the US infectious disease expert that went head-to-head with President Donald Trump. Yesterday, he said a COVID-19 vaccine could diminish the virus as successfully as the polio vaccine did. He said it was important that people got vaccinated and did it quickly. Locally, consumer confidence has jumped to its highest level in more than a decade, driven by news of vaccines for COVID-19 and data showing the recession was over, at least technically. The Westpac Melbourne Institute Consumer Sentiment Index rose 4.1% this month and is back to pre-COVID levels. It's almost 50% higher than the reading in April. Australia is on track to beat its 2030 Paris emissions reduction target and meet its global climate commitments without using its Kyoto carryover credits. The Department of Energy Emissions Projections 2020 report said Australia was 56 million tonnes short of hitting its 2030 target. That's a relatively low amount. The trade dispute with China keeps getting worse. Beijing has now banned timber from South Australia and Tasmania, and 2 lamb exporters are also now affected. And media reports this morning suggest the $600 million cotton trade and $570 million in wheat exports to China are next in line. Iron ore prices hit a new 7-year high yesterday of over $148 a tonne, on the back of record demand from Chinese steel mills and ongoing supply problems in Brazil, Australia's main rival in the sector. The rise of Fortescue Metals has made it the 6th largest company on the ASX, yesterday overtaking ANZ Bank. The miner has a market capitalisation of $67.1 billion, ahead of the bank's $66.2 billion. Fortescue share prices jumped 110% during the past year. It's been a remarkable Australian success story. Gold and nickel miner IGO will attempt to morph into a clean energy metals miner after inking a $1.9 billion deal with a Chinese lithium company. IGO will acquire a 25% stake in the Greenbushes lithium mine in Western Australia and a 49% stake in an integrated battery-grade lithium hydroxide plant outside Perth. There's an interesting story in The Australian this morning. US private equity giant Blackstone wants to sell $3.5 billion worth of its Australian logistics property portfolio. It's being billed as the biggest industrial property sale ever. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. There's more on all of these stories in today's full Fear and Greed podcast, as well as an interview with Cash Reward CEO Bernard Wilson. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.